Welcome into another episode. I'm really excited to be joined today by someone who has been a star in the pack for a minute, but has really gotten to show out with her team this year. It's Talia von Oelhoffen from over at Oregon State. Talia, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Yeah, we got big weekend ahead of us, so just been working and preparing. But yeah, I'm doing really good.
No doubt. Yeah, it feels like every single weekend is an insane weekend in the pack too. Like Friday nights, I just know something insane is going to happen every time that I get all my screens loaded up. Have you what's been like the most exciting moment you've gotten to watch that you haven't been a part of in the pack this season?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because there's
I
there's
think
some nutty ones.
yeah, there's there's been some crazy ones for sure. I think I really liked I don't always get a chance to watch the games because we play like on the same days.
Yeah.
But I remember watching WSU's upset over UCLA. And that was super exciting. Just I'm friends with a lot of those girls and I'm from Washington. And so to see them get a big win like that on the road was super cool.
Yeah, especially right after Charlize had gone down too. It was really cool to see them get that
Yeah.
together. Um,
Yeah, and it's really cool how good they are too, because she kind of came in and was a big part of turning that program around. And now that she's out, I mean, they're still doing really good, and she's still a big part of it. So it's super cool.
yeah, getting to see everything come together has been really dope. It feels like there just is not a bad team in the pack. Everybody's ready to go every night. The most important question I have to ask though, uh, do you have thoughts on Oregon's court? Because I don't know.
Um, I don't know. I think I understand like watching it on TV, I think is a lot worse than it is in
I
person.
agree.
Just on camera, it just doesn't look good at all. It's hard to watch, especially depending on like what colors the uniforms are. But I think like playing on it, I don't really notice
Yeah.
like at all. I get the concept, what they were going for. I don't know how great the execution was, but I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
court, so at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I've been a long time proponent of it actually. Which I'm in a very stark minority with that. I love it. I think it looks great. Well, why not? Try it out. I've
Yeah,
never thought it looks like vomited manure, but to each their own. So
yeah, that was crazy
people are hilarious. Twitter is the most wild place that's ever existed.
for sure.
But yeah, obviously you guys picked up a really good win playing in Eugene. Had a really damn nice win against Utah before that as well. Um, I guess kind of like zooming out and looking at this year as a whole, how are you kind of feeling midway through the Pac-12 season?
I'm feeling really good. I mean, just how far this team has come since the beginning of the season, and now we're halfway through, and it just feels like we keep getting better and better, and people keep stepping up, and we're just unlocking new levels and learning new things about who we are and our identity as a team. And it just feels like we get better every day we're in the gym. And I think that Utah win was really the first time where we were like, oh shit, like we're good. Like we can be
Yeah.
really good. And I think it's easy to be like, say we're young and obviously we have no seniors. We're a pretty new team. And so there's a lot of talk around that, I feel like. But I mean, we have the experience at this point and we just love each other so much and we're having so much fun and we have a lot of talent. I think we have all the pieces and we can compete with anyone. So I think now there's a kind of a realization around that and it's fun to get in the gym every day and just compete.
Yeah, no, I love that mindset because I think part of what's been fun with you guys, I feel like in a lot of ways, people, especially the A people, were late to the party with what you guys were doing this year. I
Mhm.
think the first game I caught you guys was against Villanova this year, and I knew like even with them losing Maddie, like they were going to be a solid team. And I think you kind of got that vibe early. I'm like, okay, Oregon State's coming a little bit different this year. Was there like maybe a game that other than Utah, or maybe it was Utah, that you felt like kind of was the first time that like clicked, like okay, we could be pretty good this year?
I think maybe USC, even though we didn't come away with that one. I mean, we were right in it the whole game and it could have gone either way down the stretch. Um, and then I think it was like you said, the Villanova win. I think there was just some wins like that where we maybe weren't playing our best basketball, but it's cool to be able to learn and like get that experience, but still come out like winning and on the other end of it. Because I mean, Coach Ruick always says you don't have to lose to learn. That's kind of one of his
Yeah.
things. And so I think throughout the season so far, even wins and losses, it's all experience and we're just learning. Um, And obviously we have freshmen, sophomores, transfers, new people. And obviously this is just a whole new team. So I think it's just all of it is just experience and it's all coming together for us at the right time. And so we're just having a lot of fun and looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think like you said too, like for me with Pac-12 play, watching you guys come out and do what you did playing Arizona in an extremely tough game after the Los Angeles trip. I don't know, I feel like so often you see teams like you go through that tough stretch playing through the best teams, and you come and obviously Arizona's a little bit down this year, but they're still really tough to play against. Like that's a very big trap game for a lot of teams. So seeing you guys still able to gut that out after your first losses in the pack was like, okay, I feel like definitely a different vibe with this group. Um,
Yeah, I think that Arizona game was like a turning point for us. And just for to put together a really good season, I think there's a little bit of luck involved in it. And that was a game where I feel like we caught a break a little bit. We were not supposed to win that game. We didn't play well. We're down 5 with 30 seconds left. And definitely credit to us for making plays down the stretch, but just wasn't a great performance. So to be able to come out with a win in a game like that and be able to learn from it and kind of carry that momentum into against Arizona State, who also is down this year, but we dominated. We came out and we played really well. So I think just learning through everything and responding to adversity. That Arizona game I think was a big swing in momentum and kind of it just felt like we caught a break a little bit and we just rode the momentum and we just learned from it and kept getting better. So there's definitely been moments like that for sure.
yeah, if there's ever been a game that should teach people to not turn their TV off if it looks like it's about to be over, that
Yeah.
would be the one from this year because I was
Yeah.
not expecting that to happen the way that it did. Um,
Mhm.
kind of transitioning from that as well. Obviously, you mentioned has been really well publicized this year. Like you guys don't have any seniors. It's a very young group. But also in a lot of ways, you really are the player who bridges the gap from the last era of Oregon State to obviously going through this rebuild to where you guys are at now. What has it been like kind of enduring that a little bit? Like obviously you came in and you played a pretty significant part as a, I guess freshman or whatever you would call it, like a transitional freshman. And then kind of going through a lot of different role changes. Like how do you kind of like is that something that's kind of hit you this year? Or have you just kind of been like so in it you don't really think about it?
Yeah, it's just definitely just been a long journey and my role has changed a lot and I think I've just gotten more better at my role. It was just an interesting thing coming in as a senior and going through that whole COVID experience and then, having a lot of expectation as a freshman, having already played college basketball. It was just like a super unique thing. And then, that year also, I think we finished 8th in the pack. Like we were very average. And then last year being injured and I think won 4 games in the pack. And so it's just been it was really hard, honestly. Like it was tough, the toughest thing I've ever had to go through. And so just learning from that and carrying that into this year and just having all of that experience and having gone through the hard things and learned from it, I feel like just I've had to be a leader the last 2 years and um maybe haven't done the best job of it, going through all my own stuff and it's just hard years and losing's hard, being a leader's hard when you're losing. So I think carrying all of that into this year and just growing as a leader and the person that kind of bridges that gap and having gone through, all those losses and all those hard times, I feel like makes it a lot easier to kind of lead this year and just know what to say and when to say it and how to encourage my teammates and make sure everyone's mind's right and staying positive and all that kind of stuff. So I think the rebuild, like you said, I think that experience is super important and it's kind of led into what we're doing this year.
Yeah, and I heard you mention in another interview before that you felt like you weren't a good leader the last 2 years. Like, how do you work on being a leader? Like, what do you like? I think it's one thing to hear somebody say like, I'm going to be a better leader this year, but like, what kind of things do you do to do that? Like, how do you kind of put an emphasis on that? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's just my big focus this year has just been staying outward. And no one's perfect as a leader. Obviously, I'm not saying that I am this year or anything like that, but just making sure when things aren't going my way, I'm just giving to my teammates and not focused on, what's going on with me if I'm having a bad game. I still have to be a leader and I still have to, just come in every day and make sure that that's something that I'm aware of and I'm thinking about and I'm taking on that role every day, no matter the circumstances. Um, and like I said last year, I mean, I think we lost 9 games in a row. It's hard to show up to the gym every day in a good mood when you haven't won in months, you know.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like coming to college, I had never really lost. Like in everything I did my whole life in every sport, like I was always on winning teams. I had never really felt that failure before. So it was just a really good experience for me to kind of go through that and just learn from it and come into this year. I feel like a completely different person and a completely different leader and able to, take those experiences and just get better and keep growing from it. And I think the first step of that is kind of just acknowledging like, hey, I didn't do this, and this well, I haven't been who my teammates need me to be. And so I think just acknowledging that and just working at it every day has been the key for me. And my teammates make it really easy. I mean, I love them. And I'm not the only leader on this team, of course. We have a lot. So that makes it easier to just pour into each other. But yeah, this is just a really great group.
Yeah, especially like just, I mean, watching from afar and everything I've heard, it seems like a really well-knit group, and you guys are obviously doing great things with it. But like you mentioned too, in terms of like kind of sitting with some of that stuff from the first couple of years, how do you approach that like mindset wise in the off season and like, kind of recalibrating and like preparing for that next year? Because again, like you're saying, like it can kind of be easy to get lost in that a little bit and not necessarily look forward.
Yeah, I think for me, so I had surgery in March. So I spent all of the off season kind of just rehabbing, and I didn't pick up a basketball for a while. I don't think I could run until 4 months. And then it was a full 6 before I started playing. So for me, I think a lot of it was just obviously getting healthy and taking care of my body and all that. But a lot of it was just mental, and doing the mental work of kind of just reflecting on the season and what I need to do better, what kind of my goals are and what the team's going to need from me, who I'm going to need to be to turn this into, a winning team and a team that can go places and win championships and get back to the Final Four. And just doing that internal work, I guess, of just how to respond to adversity, how to show up every day consistently, regardless of wins, losses, anything like that, no matter the situation. And I think that's just as important as getting in the gym and getting shots up and stuff like that, just doing that work mentally and just pouring into my teammates and growing closer with them off the court. So I think that was kind of my journey last year, was figuring a lot of that stuff out on a personal level. And I think that was the best thing for me coming back into playing and getting back into basketball. And I think that's the biggest difference for me from last year to this year.
No, I really appreciate that mindset because I was talking about this with JC Sheldon from over at Ohio State a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned kind of the same thing. Like last year was her first injury she's ever had to deal with that's kept her sidelined. She was like, as much as it sucked, I think I had to learn a lot more about how to lead differently and how to approach things differently and how to kind of just be able to take a backseat and recognize sometimes that I need to find a new approach. So no, that makes a ton of sense to me. Um, I
Yeah, and
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think that I've always been kind of my role on all the teams I've been up until this point has been, I'm the scorer, like I'm who we go to when we need a bucket. And that's kind of has been my identity in basketball, is kind of scoring and playmaking. So I think, yeah, like you said, just finding out different ways to impact the team. And I feel like my impact on this team is so much different than it has been on any other team. I'm not really just a scorer. I mean, I'll score when I need to, but I think especially on the defensive end, I have the biggest role I've had, and I want the tough defensive assignments, and I feel like I have to be the leader on that end of the floor. And rebounding, leading, whatever it is, like everything else besides scoring is kind of what I've taken on this year. And obviously, the scoring will come when it needs to, but I think being out away from basketball and being able to just recognize all those things and all the different ways that you can impact a team has been super important for me getting back into it. And so, yeah, to her point, it's just a whole new perspective.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny because this year, like obviously, like you can look at box scores, and this is, I believe, your lowest scoring year, but I think this is the most I've ever felt you're scoring before, if that makes sense. Like the way that you get your shots and the way that it comes in the flow of the offense, along with how you create and play make for everyone else, I feel like it's so impactful. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like especially like I don't know, like people always are talking about like positionless basketball, but to me, it's more like if I'm looking at your position, I'm just calling you a playmaker right now. On both sides of the ball, you make things happen. So in terms of like finding that kind of that change in your role, what was that like on both sides of the court? So again, we can flow into defense too, but yeah.
I think just for me, it's more of an identity thing. I think growing up and even in high school and coming into college, it was like, okay, if I score 20 plus, that's a good game. I only had 6 points. Like I play like shit, like whatever it is. That's kind of how it's always been in my head, which is not a great mindset. And I'm
Yeah.
acknowledging that. Now I feel like I don't really care how much I score. Like one, I want to win, but I feel like one of the best things about my game is I try to impact the game in so many other ways now, whether it's defense, whether it's rebounding, play calling, during free throws in the huddles, just what I'm saying to my teammates, getting everyone on the same page. Like all those little things, I feel like I have an impact on the game in those ways. And that's kind of how, I step off the court and I look at those things to see if I played well. How did I lead? What was my pace like? Things like that instead of just looking at, oh, I scored this many points like that. I'm really at a place now that truly does not matter to me. I don't care if I score a single point. I want to win. I want to, get stops, pour into my teammates, and just get everyone confident and having fun. And I feel like that Utah game was a great example of that. Like everyone on the team was just confident. I think we shot like 60 something
It
percent.
was
Like
insane. Yeah.
yeah, everyone was just firing on all cylinders, and I don't even know how many points I had, but I was just like getting lit the whole time. Like I picked up, playing defense, just doing whatever I needed to do. And that was probably the most fun game of my career. Like everyone was just going. And so that's really my focus this year is just when I step out there, be a leader, play defense, and finding my role every game because it'll change. It's just whatever the team needs from me that day. And I'm having so much fun with it. And I don't know, this seems just super fun and makes it easy for me. So it's just a fun challenge to find that little role every game and figuring out what I need to do to win.
I love that. Especially mentioning what you do offensively. I feel like part of what's so fun about this team this year is it feels like honestly everybody on the court for you guys can make something happen offensively. Like obviously she already was last year, but Tamia just keeps growing as like one of the best shooters in college basketball. Donovan has obviously been phenomenal. Has had two really great games in a row. Like you look at just what everybody else has been doing. Reagan becoming like arguably the best post player in the country. Like there's a lot to that goes into that. Especially like, turning it to talk about Reagan really quick. Did you know that this kind of season was coming, or did you get a sense in the off season that Reagan was going to hit this kind of level? Because obviously she was phenomenal as a freshman, but like I think again, like the Villanova game, she was awesome. But then I think it was when you guys played Jackson State, I was like, oh, okay, like this is a different year. Jackson State's awesome defensively. They've been really good. But was there kind of a moment where you're like, all right, Reagan Beers All-American, here we come?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think there was a moment. I think just watching her grow from last season into the off season into this year, she's just dominant. And yeah, there was never really a moment. It's kind of just
Yeah.
Reagan, and she's gonna be Reagan. And I think the biggest thing for her this year was just going from preseason into the Pac-12. And obviously that's a big jump in the kind of posts you're playing. Playing mid-major posts is definitely much different than playing Power Five centers. And so for her adjusting to that, passing out of double teams, she's grown so much on the defensive end of the floor. I think she's leading our team in steals and is just super smart about her positioning and where she's at, and has just grown so much on that end of the floor. So I think obviously Reagan is Reagan. If she gets deep position, she's going to score and she's going to get rebounds and everyone's going to talk about that. But I think all the other things she's doing for our team is just as important. And as a sophomore, she's a big leader on this team as well. And her voice carries a lot of weight, and she carries it all so well. So I don't know, to your point, no, Reagan is Reagan, and she's always been Reagan. And I think everyone that's been in the gym with her every day kind of saw this coming.
Yeah, especially mentioning being in the gym with her. Like when you talk about consistency, I think that's one of the most consistent players I've seen in terms of, how she gets to her spots, the way she finishes. Um, is there like, do you have like a story or anecdote from practice that kind of reminds you like, oh shit, okay, like that's, Reagan Beers is able to really get to that and make that happen.
Um, I don't know if there's a specific moment. I think it's just she she's just the same every day. Like you said, she gets her position, she keeps it very simple, and the coaches have done a good job, teaching her how to get to her spots and how to oh,
Did
sorry.
the lights just go out?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Um, how to get to her spots. But I think there's definitely been a couple times where in practice, she's down there and she just demands the ball. Like sometimes I tell Reagan, because I never miss Reagan. Like I pride
I
myself on
agree.
if Reagan has position or if I have the ball in transition, like my first thing is I'm dribbling to the wing and I'm throwing it into Reagan. So whenever like if she gets missed on a post up or whatever, I tell her like demand the ball. Like you have position. You need to be calling for it. Like the ball needs to be in your hands. So I think there's definitely been days where she's kind of stepped into that and like she's down there demanding the ball from the guards and to the point where it's like, whoa, okay, Reagan. Like so I think her just stepping into that and realizing how good she is. Obviously she's very humble, but um just coming into her own and kind of realizing, her role and just all of those things. She's a lot more confident, has a lot bigger voice. And so she's just grown so much and she's only a sophomore, so only the beginning for her.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, that's part of what's so exciting about watching this team as a whole. Like everybody is young. Everybody has like so much room to grow. And I mean, talking about Donovan too, like obviously had the really big game against Colorado. You look at what she's doing as a whole, and like, obviously, everybody has a different situation, but kind of can morph where you were at as a freshman compared to her, both playing as a guard. What has it been like kind of seeing her continue to get acclimated to this level and have some of those big moments?
Yeah, I think it's just the way that she handles mistakes and maybe not playing well or just any sort of adversity, anything going wrong. She's just on to the next play all the time. And that's, I think, what has allowed her to be as successful as she has been and to have the weekend that she had against the mountain schools is just her mindset and just she doesn't take anything too seriously. She just wants to learn and keep getting better and she works super hard every day. And she's just the same all the time. And so that's she's super mature for a freshman and there's been times she's just so steady and she always has the same kind of demeanor and there's been times where I'm like, Donald, like I need you to get mad right now. Like I need you to get pissed off. Like, come on. And I think that's starting to come out of her a little bit more, but it's
Hmm.
definitely a great thing that she has that demeanor and is so consistent. Um, and then now I think as we get into bigger games, she's showing that emotion a little bit more in a good way. So yeah, she's just very mature. I think that's the best way to describe it. And so it's just super impressive what she's doing and to play a point guard in the Pac-12 as a freshman speaking from experience, is super hard.
Not easy.
And so she's handling it and carrying it very well. And she's only going to get better as well.
Yeah, it's cool too because like obviously she's doing a lot of great stuff playing point, but like part of what stood out to me the first time I watched it wasn't even about like scoring or anything. It was like you mentioned in terms of you growing and finding those other ways to impact the game. I feel like she already has that in a lot of ways. Like she just has a knack for getting timely rebounds. She's really good moving without the ball. She's good if like okay, if she starts a set and initiates, then she's gonna move and she's gonna get herself where she needs to be and she'll lift if she needs to. Like it's small things that you don't really think about, but like especially for a freshman doing that stuff already, that's a big part of being able to be consistent and play for a high level program.
Yeah, and I think so much is demanded of her as a freshman point guard. There's some mistakes that she makes or some things that she just simply doesn't know to do that. It's like she hasn't been at this level for very long or hasn't been in this situation. So like why would she know that?
Yeah.
And just play calling and how much she has to handle mentally and just all the things as a point guard on both ends of the floor at this level that you have to be thinking of. It's really hard. And so I know for me, like obviously been in the program for a while, so I know um, kind of a lot, and just trying to help her and tell her just like little things. I know how much is on her mind, so I'm like, okay, like I get it, but I need you to be here when this happens, and she just takes it all in, um, and I know how hard that is, but she really just takes it as a challenge, and she just does her best all the time, and the mental effort that it takes, I think, is more than what it takes physically.
Hmm.
And she's just really taken that on and grown so much, and is just very smart. And I know I trust her. If I tell her, when the five comes up, like I need you to be on the wing, I need you to do this. The USC game was a big one because that was the first time I was getting trapped off ball screens. So I was like, I need you to come out of the corner, and I had to tell her a few times, and got on her, but she hasn't. Every time I get trapped now, she's there. So it's like she just keeps learning and accepting it, and she does it with grace and humility too. So she's just such a good teammate and just such a fun person to play with.
Yeah, I'm really excited to keep watching her grow with you guys. Mentioning defense too, like we hit on a little bit earlier. I feel like not that I thought you were a bad defender prior, but I feel like you've really taken a big step as a defender this year. And like you mentioned too, in terms of just the kinds of players you're guarding, like you're guarding Grace Van Sluten last game, and like you were kind of just taking on any role possible. So, what do you think has been the biggest growth for you as a defender this year? Like, what's maybe been like any kind of change up approach wise, or like what do you think has been the biggest thing in how you've approached that? And
Yeah, I think not even just coming into this year, but I think the Bay Area trip um was like a big turning point for me. And I don't even really know why. I think something just clicked in my head, and Scott had been saying, obviously our defense has been good, but I think we have been kind of lacking that leader on defense that's kind of just gonna, hold people accountable and just be that voice on that end of the floor. I think every team needs that. And that's something that, especially in practice, when the scout guys are scoring on us over and over again, and he's like, someone needs to step up right now. Like someone needs to, we don't have a leader on the floor. And so I think I've really just tried to step into that. And obviously I can't hold people accountable if I'm not getting the job done myself. And so I think it just comes down to like, I'm just really enjoying it. Like I'm having a lot of fun playing defense, and like I want to guard the other team's best wing, and I want to, be impactful, and just seeing myself as that player and in that role hasn't been, my role on previous teams. And so I've been really trying to step into that, and especially being, the one that's kind of been here the longest, and just schematically, I know certain things about certain players or what needs to happen at different times. And it's just as mental as it is effort. I think Donna said this in a press conference the other day, but when you get to college, your whole life, everyone says defense is just all effort. It's all effort. And then you get here and it's like everyone's working as hard as they can. Like you have to
yeah,
be smart, you have to know angles, and you have to, know when to gamble, know when you can't, know who's a shooter, and know tendencies and all of those things. And so I think just over the course of 3 years, all of that's kind of sinking in, and I'm just having fun with it, enjoying it. And I know that that's what it's going to take for us to win, is to have that leader on that end of the floor. So I'm honestly just having fun, and that makes it really easy to get out there and compete and try to be as impactful as I can on that end of the floor. And I think the rest of my teammates are doing the same as well, just stepping into that. And our defense has been really good these past couple weeks, and still a lot of mistakes to clean up. So the sky is really the limit for our defense and for this team.
yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned that too, because I hate whenever I hear like, oh, well, defense is just effort. Like, no, like, yeah, you have to play hard, but you have to play hard and focused. And I think that's the hardest part is like, because it's one thing to be focused, but okay, being focused and in tune with everything that an offense is doing. Like I was talking about this with Tanaya Lassen from Florida State yesterday, and she was like, that's my biggest growth area that I'm always getting on about is like, I just kind of, it's not even that I'm not trying, but like, I just like, I'm so focused on thinking about like, well, what if the ball's out and I can run the break and then I get hit by a screen? And, oh shit, possession's over. Like little things like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people watching don't have a concept of how difficult it is to see a screen sometimes. Like, so often I feel like less than half of screens you actually see coming. And a lot of that's just communication and hopefully having your big call it out behind you. because even then, like that's one of the things I feel like you've really grown in this year is how you get around screens. Because again, like a lot of players, especially when you're taller than like 5'8", it's hard to get around a screen. Like it's just bodies are not built to go around screens. But I feel you've gotten really good at that this year.
For sure. And with screens in particular, honestly, like going back to the effort thing, like you can be giving 100% effort, but if you go under a screen on a shooter and they hit a three, like that's not good defense. Like that's
Yeah.
not, no, that's not the scout. But yeah, I think especially these last 3 weeks, like I've grown a lot in not touching screens, and that's been a focus of mine. And I just view it as like a challenge and like the game within the game. Like when a screen's coming, all of my focus is just don't touch this, or make sure, if we're forcing right, if we're forcing left, like get her going that way. Whether I'm under or over, just be perfect in that. And if they hit a tough shot, they hit a tough shot, but I'm gonna be in good position and I'm not gonna run into the screen. And yeah, that game within the game can be super fun if you make it. So I think that's kind of just been my mindset these last couple weeks. And Oregon specifically, I mean, they were rescreening. I mean, they had us coming off
Yeah.
3 or 4 in a row.
They're really funky. It's like running through the house with 1,000 screens playing against them because they'll play they play like three bigs in their starting lineup. And it's like, well, we're just going to set a million screens to try and get to the 17
Yeah,
footer and good luck
yeah.
defending it.
Donna and I were talking about that after the game because there was a few possessions where her and it was 3 or 4 back and forth. So I'm like, at a certain point, we got to switch this. Like I'm getting through 4 screens
I'm getting
here.
dizzy. Yeah. Like, come on.
Yeah, Donna specifically, I think, has grown so much in that area. I think early in the season, she was used to going under and had a lot of threes hit over the top early this year. Maybe not in games, but I just remember it happening a lot in practice. And so I think just the mental effort that she's put into knowing when to go under, knowing when to go over, how to get around it, off the ball as well. That's been a really big area of growth for her. In realizing that it's not all effort. I mean, it's a lot of it. It definitely takes 100% effort, but it takes a lot more. And so all those little things she's growing at as well and has gotten so much better. So she could be, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year by the time her career is over for sure. So she's just keeps learning, keeps growing, and is just getting better every day.
Yeah, she's definitely got all the tools to do it. Is there a player or team that you're most looking forward to getting a chance to guard again now that you're like kind of hitting this new groove?
A teammate that I'm looking
No,
for?
no, like a player or a team coming
Oh,
up that you're excited to maybe
oh,
get to go
okay.
against
I
again
was
with
like,
no, you're good.
who I
I've
want to
worded it
guard in
poorly.
practice. I would say, I mean, I think just looking forward to this weekend. Frida Foreman is
Yeah, Big
super
Frida is
underrated.
crazy tough.
Yeah, I don't think she gets talked about as much as she should. And I guarded her our first game, and the first half, she made me pay for every mistake that I made in that first half. And then, that's what great players do. So made a lot of adjustments going to that second half. And I thought I did a good job on her, but she definitely took a lot of, max effort, as you said, and perfect position and perfect angles to be able to impact her that way. But I think she's kind of their X factor. And in my opinion, when
Yeah,
she's going, they are a top 3 team in the country. And so yeah, she's a great player that I don't think gets talked about enough. But
yeah.
I'm looking forward to guarding her this weekend, I would say. And then obviously we got Juju and USC coming here the week after, and Charisma. And so, every night it seems like there's gonna be
Every
someone.
night there's a hard ass
Yeah,
guard in the big
yeah.
in the
I don't
Pac-12.
know. I don't know that there's one in particular. I think just whoever the next matchup is, the next game, that's who I'm focused on. That's who I'm scouting for, practicing for. So yeah, there's one every night,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's so funny what you say with Rita too, because I agree. Like obviously that whole team just cooks. Like they move the ball so well. They're really good defensively. They just do a lot that works in synergy. But like if you don't pick her up right away in transition, bucket. If you fall asleep on the back end, flare screen, bucket. If you don't catch her on a cross screen when she's going off floppy, like okay, you're screwed. Then she's bucket. Like because exactly what you're saying. She's not necessarily like fast north south, but she's so fast going side to side and coming off movement that it's like I feel like that's almost harder to guard than somebody who can go straight to the rim.
Yeah, and I think JR does a great job in their offense of like I was chasing her off 6 screens of possession, and she, she'll flare and she doesn't get it. Okay, she's going through to the other side, and then it's a gator cut,
She
and then she's
never
coming up.
stops moving, like ever.
And yeah, and that's I mean, credit to her obviously, but that's just their offense. Like they're just um moving for the, until they get a shot up. And so that's another thing that makes them good. It's just the pace that they play with. And so defensively, that's, you don't get to relax for 40 minutes. And I thought that was kind of the difference in the game and why we were able to come out on top is everyone was just locked in full effort for 40 minutes. And that's what it takes to beat a team like that. So yeah, I'm excited for that challenge again this weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. Well, a couple more things I want to close out on before we get out of here. First and foremost, like what drives you? I know it's a very like random question, but you very clearly come off as somebody who's a very competitive person who really cares about what you're doing. So like what really drives you to keep being better? What keeps driving you to, reach higher stages?
Yeah, I think I would just say winning. That's why I came here to a program like this that had obviously won a lot in the past, and then going through those first 2 years of, I think I talked about this in some interview the other day, but I think when you come to a program like this, subconsciously there is a small part of you that's like kind of just thinks you're going to show up and win. Like they've been to a Final Four, they've been to a Sweet
Mhm.
16, Elite Eight, Elite Eight. So for me, it was like I didn't even think about the possibility of not going to the tournament. That was never in my mind coming here. I was like, oh, Oregon State, that's a tournament team, and obviously I want to be a big part of that and have my impact on winning. But nothing was handed to me and nothing was easy in those first 2 years. Just going through all that failure and losing so much as someone that has won my whole life was just super hard and super um it was just tough, like having to look in the mirror every day and just just trying to figure out how to get back to winning and how to impact the team. um and so it's just been super fun this year. I feel like just figuring that out, and like I said, I just want to win. In these past 2 years, I feel like are what's allowing me to really be that kind of X factor this year, and just try to do whatever I can to get this team wins. And it's been super fun to figure that out each night and just, work with my teammates and the coaches and just compete every night. It's just super fun. And I think those first 2 years were crucial for me, just as a person, as a player, just all around, to go through those tough times and those lessons and applying it now to this year and just doing whatever I can to win. I'm competitive. I love basketball. I love winning. And so that's kind of my goal, my focus right now.
Yeah, as an aside too, like how do you kind of take game by game with losses? Because I think with a lot of people, myself included, I'm not good at taking loss. I hate losing so much. I can imagine you do too. So like what was kind of the learning process like with coming from, like you mentioned, being somebody who had not really had to deal with losing a lot to, all right, shoot, this happens. So like how do you kind of obviously you don't want to get accustomed to it, but like how do you kind of work at rolling with the punches with that?
Yeah, it's hard. I was just thinking about this. It might have even been yesterday, recently, but I just come into the gym every day, just so like happy this year, and I'm grateful to be with this team. And not that I wouldn't be if we were losing, but it definitely makes it a lot easier to show up and keep going and just love where you're at and the process and the whole thing. But yeah, like I said last year, losing 9 games in a row, showing up to practice for 3 hours every day and then losing again, and that's just it's super hard to show up every day and in the mindset that you need to be in with the attitude that you need to have. It's demanding, and so it's just a such a learning experience of who are you really when things are going wrong, and when so much adversity is hitting all the time. You kind of figure out who you are and who you need to be and who you need to become. So I think that was kind of just my journey. And I think now, obviously, we are winning, but I think even if we weren't, I think I've really just grown a lot in that area and know who I need to be when I show up to the gym every day, what my attitude needs to be, what my energy and leadership needs to be like. And that has to be unwavering. And I think not just for me, for everyone on this team, that's just the standard. And so obviously we've lost a few games, but just this team shows up the same every day, and we do our little huddle with just the team before practice, and it's not always me. So it's usually me, but sometimes I pass it on to other people to just give our little talk for the day, what we want to focus on, whatever it is. And everyone just always has so many good things to say, and we start practice the same way every day. And this team is just so focused and knows what we want, and we compete and we hold each other accountable. And I think that's just all the signs of a really, really special group. So I'm just excited for the rest of the season and to keep going out there and competing with this team.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then lastly, you mentioned obviously, goal and focus for this year is just keep improving. But when you look at, what you guys really want to accomplish moving forward and what you really want to do in your career, obviously not to do like grass is greener or whatever, but what things really motivate you, what things you really want to keep working towards and accomplishing?
Yeah, I think just I want to play professionally after college and just continuing to be the best version of myself. I think whatever that means, and continue to be what my team needs me to be, and just keep winning wherever I go. I mean, I think that's the focus. I think my role on this team is different because I don't need to be as much of a scorer. And I just need to do all the other little things. But obviously within that, continuing to develop my game for when I do go to the next level. And just keep having an impact on people. I think especially at Oregon State, we have a lot of amazing fans and a lot of, little girls that come to our games all the time. And we do our 8-minute mingle afterwards where we sign autographs, and we're very intentional about the way that we, interact with and impact the community. And so that stuff like that is super important to me too, because, I was that little girl watching Sydney Weiss, Kelsey Plum growing up. And so to be that for, the next generation is super important. Just continuing to advocate for women's sports especially is also something that's super important to me.
Well, awesome. I'm excited to watch you keep doing that. I'm excited to watch you guys the rest of this year. A lot of great stuff coming up. To everyone listening, keep up with all things Oregon State. We got a lot coming up this week. Oh, my internet is like crashing. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I have no idea what just happened. Let's restart. Well, to everyone listening, thank you for listening. Keep up with all things Oregon State. Obviously, a great slate of games coming up for you guys this weekend. A lot coming up down the wire. I'm really excited to keep watching what you guys do. I'm excited to watch you keep growing. I've really enjoyed your career. I'm excited to see how it keeps going. Talia, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No problem.